Welcome, everyone. Let's get right into it. Today, we're diving into a masterclass explainer on the Cambridge accounting module for sources of finance. Specifically, we are locking on to the AS and A-Level 9706 syllabus. We aren't just reading textbooks today, no. We are decoding exactly what those Cambridge examiners are actively hunting for. We're getting right into the mechanical, strategic side of how you actually secure those top-tier marks.
Right off the bat, let's look at the highest stakes trap out there. This quote, it's pulled directly from the principal examiner reports. It says, candidates consistently confuse key terminology. Always define terms before using them in extended responses. Listen, this is absolutely huge. You've got to define your terms to stop hemorrhaging easy marks. It is such a simple mechanical step, right? But skipping it, that is literally the fastest way to signal to the examiner that you're totally guessing and don't actually have a firm grip on fundamental accounting principles. So, to get you fully into the mind of the examiner today, we're going to climb a 5-step cognitive ladder. We'll start with the assessment objectives, move into mastering the procedural framework, break down the method mark strategy, unlock critical evaluation, and finally, wrap up with the top 3 examiner pitfalls you absolutely must avoid. All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the assessment objectives, mapping the cognitive domains. Here is the crucial takeaway. Successful top-band candidates do not just sit there and memorize facts. They demonstrate active competence across 3 highly specific cognitive domains: knowledge and understanding, analysis, and the absolute crown jewel for top marks, evaluation. It is never, ever going to be enough to just say, hey, a source of finance is a bank loan, or they could issue shares. You have to systematically analyze that source's impact and then critically evaluate its suitability for the exact business entity sitting there in the prompt. And this comparison right here brilliantly illustrates the core engine of the entire Cambridge assessment framework. Examiners massively prioritize logical, structured reasoning and analytical depth over just, scattering a wide, superficial breadth of facts across the page. Think about it. If you're asked about the best way for a company to raise capital, writing one single deep, rigorously reasoned paragraph exploring the long-term gearing implications of a bank loan, that is worth far more marks than just quickly bullet pointing 10 different ways a business could scrounge up cash without actually analyzing any of them. Analytical depth wins every single time. Okay, moving on to Section 2, mastering the procedural framework, or the rules of presentation. Listen closely, because examiners expect you to exhibit genuine professional skills. That means you absolutely must follow strict conventions when you're extracting or presenting data. You have to apply proper headings, use the correct terminology, format your data appropriately, and provide crystal clear annotations. Remember, accounting is literally the language of business. If you aren't presenting your arguments in the accepted professional format, you aren't speaking the language correctly, and the examiner, well, they're going to have to penalize you for it. Now, here is the real secret to breaking into those top percentiles. If you just memorize past papers, you are going to hit a wall. Your knowledge has got to be flexible enough to apply to completely unfamiliar business scenarios. The syllabus explicitly states that top-performing students exhibit a connected, conceptual understanding. When you open up that exam paper on test day, you might be hit with a scenario about a tiny local startup or maybe a massive multinational manufacturing firm. The core principles of finance, they stay exactly the same, but how you apply them has to completely adapt to the unique scenario staring back at you. Let's step right into Section 3, the method mark strategy, earning points for process. When you're in the trenches problem solving, this 5-step cognitive framework is your ultimate roadmap to maximizing points, especially in those brutal multi-stage questions. First step, identify the given information from the stimulus materials. Second, break the problem down into logical, manageable steps. Third, solve it systematically. Fourth, check for reasonableness. Ask yourself, does your final number actually make real-world sense? And fifth, make justified recommendations. If you internalize this specific process, you are naturally going to structure your answers exactly how the examiner is desperate to read them. So, why is that systematic execution such a game changer? Because you have got to show your work clearly. Examiners actively award crucial method marks for your procedural steps, even if your final calculation goes completely off the rails. Seriously, think about it. If you make a tiny, silly arithmetic error in step 1, but your logic in steps 2, 3, and 4 is completely flawless based on that first mistake, Cambridge examiners will often reward your correct process. But, and this is a massive but, they can only give you those marks if they can see your steps clearly annotated on the page. Systematic execution is just as vital as the final answer. Full stop.
All right, continuing our climb up the cognitive ladder, let's explore Section 4, Unlocking Critical Evaluation and Reaching the Top Tier. If you want to score at the absolute top, you have to transition from a basic descriptive level to a high level evaluative level. You have to move away from simply describing alternatives, like just noting that a bank loan carries interest while issuing shares dilutes control. That's fine, but it's basic. Instead, you need to actively question assumptions and justify your final decisions with hard, undeniable evidence. It is the fundamental difference between telling the examiner what the options are versus telling the examiner exactly why one specific choice is the absolute best option for the business entity described in the prompt. Whenever you're analyzing different sources of finance, I highly recommend using this comparative analysis checklist. It absolutely guarantees you're demonstrating true evaluative thinking rather than just passively listing features. First, identify both similarities and differences. Second, force yourself to use comparative connectives in your writing, where it's like whereas, conversely, or however. Third, support every single comparison with evidence drawn directly from the data tables they provide. And finally, draw concrete, confident conclusions about the relative importance of these factors. Seriously, this checklist forces your brain into evaluation mode. It's a total game changer.
Finally, let's look at Section 5, Top 3 Examiner Pitfalls and What to Avoid.
Guys, this table right here is an absolute goldmine. We went straight to the principal examiner reports for this. Memorize these 3 pitfalls, and more importantly, internalize the required solutions. Pitfall number 1 is vague or general answers. The fix? Always provide specific, detailed evidence. Pitfall number 2 is ignoring formatting. The solution there is simply verifying your conventions and presentation before you move on to the next question. And pitfall number 3, which is honestly the most common one I see, is a complete lack of context. You must make your answers specific to the given scenario. You have to tie your financial recommendations directly to the unique context of the business entity detailed in your exam paper. Do not just give generic textbook answers. So, I'm going to leave you with this question to really chew on as you prepare for your next Accounting 9706 paper. Will your answer rely on superficial breath, just blindly hoping to hit a keyword? Or will it actively demonstrate the analytical depth and structured reasoning that examiners actually demand? Because that choice dictates your final grade. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep practicing your strategy, stay analytical, and remember, always define your terms.